everyone, and welcome to this HOPWA pre-conference, pre-bid meeting. I am so excited to see everyone here. I feel like I'm in a virtual room with my friends, and so that's great. I do want to just do some quick introductions of who's on camera or slightly on camera, and then those in the behind the camera that are here in this room with me. So, as many of you know, and for those who don't know, my name is Melody Barr. I'm the Deputy Assistant Director of Public Services here at the Housing and Community Development Department with the City of Houston. We have Andrea Smith here with us. Lindsay Broom also is in the background, and she is going to be fielding some questions for us. And then I have Jerry Briggs here, my division manager, who many of you know. So a part of the housekeeping is that we're going to go through this presentation. We will be accepting questions. Please hold your questions until the end of the presentation. But if you're like me and you typically forget what you're about to ask, please place your question in the chat. We will definitely come back to it and answer everything that we can. Those questions will be written down afterwards, and will also be posted on our website. So we will not only try to answer as many questions as we can here, but we will also provide a written response to those questions. So I believe without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm gonna get off screen. We're going to share our screen so that way we can all see the document together. Okay. So hopefully everyone can see this, and if you can't, please let us know in chat as well. So today we are here. We issued this HOPWA NOFA, which is a Notice of Funding Award, on Friday, September 9th. Today is the pre-application meeting, and we did, instead of starting at 10:30, we started at 10:35. And you are all here because you were able to click on this link. And if you are not on the link, you may be on audio only. I do ask that if you're not muted, could you please mute yourself so that way we don't have any distraction. All right. So we're going to continue to answer questions until September 29th at 5 p.m. So if you have a question later, this particular presentation is being recorded. So you can always watch again. If you have questions, you have until September 29th to ask the questions. This NOFA is due, the solution due date is on Tuesday, October 11th at 3 p.m. And we're going to go into how you submit your NOFA. It is going to be different this year. If you have already applied with us in the past, this process has changed. I would say slightly, but it's a pretty significant change. So we are going to go through that. You're going to contact Andrea Smith at andrea.smith@houstontx.gov. Her number is listed here. That is 832-394-6249. So if you ask me a question directly through my email, I will forward that on to Andrea. She is the point of contact for this NOFA. So this particular NOFA is specifically seeking nonprofit organizations that have a 501c3 status for financial assistance for operations and administration. We're looking for support services as well for housing projects benefiting low to moderate or low income persons, and it is low to moderate income persons living with HIV or AIDS. And this is living with or affected by. This particular NOFA is for a 1-year term with the possibility of a 1-year extension, and that really is at the director's request. So this is very similar to the type of summary that you have seen before. We haven't changed much at all. When you go through the application, you will see the table of contents. Please review all of this thoroughly so that you can have the best proposal submitted to our department. So as you know, the city of Houston is the 4th largest city in the United States, and we have approximately 23 departments within the city of Houston. We give some information about our geographic boundaries. This particular program serves a 9-county region as listed below. And so many of you who are familiar with the HOPWA program are aware of that. This program is for eligible persons that reside within our eligible metropolitan statistical area, and that consists of the cities of Houston, Baytown, and Pasadena, and Austin, Brazoria, Chamber, Fort Bend, Galveston, Harris, Liberty, Montgomery, and Waller counties. This particular NOFA, we are funding with HOPWA funds. So the HOPWA program was established in 1990, amended by the Housing Community Development Act of 1992. This program is designed to provide states and localities, we are a locality, with resources and incentives to devise long-term comprehensive strategies for meeting the housing needs of low-income persons with acquired immune deficiency syndrome and their families. So in consultation with HUD and with our providers and advocates, the established outcome goals for the HOPWA program include ensuring that clients receiving support from the HOPWA program are in stable housing, reduce risk of homelessness of clients receiving HOPWA support, and improve clients' access to health care and supportive services. What you're going to see is that we have approximately $15 million available for funding through this NOFA. And you will see the solicitation date. So if I were you as an agency applying, I would make sure that each of these dates that are listed here are in your calendar. And I would probably put a reminder about 48 hours prior to those dates so that you're aware that this is what's coming up. All right, I'm sorry. This is, this is a live show. So I was trying to figure out which other part I had. So our scope of work. So we are seeking, again, nonprofit agencies to provide services for our HOPWA eligible clients. The NOFA, again, is for 1 year with the possibility of a 1-year extension at the discretion of the department. So that is essentially a 24-month period beginning at or around December 2022. And if you are currently funded with HOPWA dollars, this period will begin after, should you be accepted, this will begin after the end of your current contract. So the eligible activities under this program are tenant-based rental assistance. So this is long-term supportive housing for persons living with AIDS and their family members, short-term rent, mortgage, and utility assistance, which is emergency assistance, emergency payments to prevent homelessness, in the form of, for a tenant, rental assistance or a mortgage. Again, this is no more than 21 weeks out of any 52-week period. And then supportive services, which is a variety of different services. And so we have listed what some of the services could be. It doesn't mean that this is an exhaustive list. Let's see, operating costs. So typically the operating costs are generally for your community residents. And these are apartment complexes. And then sponsor admin, which is no more than 7% of the grant that is received. And so that is for the administration dollars. What isn't in here and is also an eligible activity, and you really find that under tenant-based rental assistance, and so this is more for clarification, is master leasing. And so the master leasing or parent leasing, as it's commonly referred, is a program that is eligible under the tenant-based rental assistance program. As well for supportive services, if you're looking to do resource identification, that is another area in which we could fund. So eligible beneficiaries under the HOPWA program are low-income persons. This is at 80% of the area median income that are medically diagnosed with HIV, and their family members are eligible to receive HOPWA funded assistance. So remember, there has to be one person in the household that has a diagnosis. You can find your HOPWA limits at this website, which is www.hudexchange.info/resources/53322/HOPWA-income-limits. So please refer to this page and copy and paste for the income limit. It's hyperlinked. It's hyperlinked in your document. And now we're going to go through the evaluation and selection process. Please be gentle with Jared. This is his first HOPWA presentation, or is this Lindsay's? It's me. It's Lindsay. So Lindsay's going to go through this and said she needs some backup will be here.
Good morning. I'm Lindsay Broom. I will be the evaluation coordinator for the SNOFA process. And so I'm just going to go over a few things related to that evaluation and selection process. So first of all, there will be an evaluation committee. They shall evaluate the applications in accordance with the evaluation criteria listed below, which we will go over in detail. The evaluation committee reserves the right to issue letters of clarification when deemed necessary to all applicants. The next section is the interviews and the oral presentations. So the city reserves the right to request the applicant to provide a final presentation handout of their application at the scheduled meeting. No applicant may attend presentations of any other applicants. And if necessary, applicants may be scheduled for more than one presentation, demonstration, or interview. The oral presentations, demonstrations, and/or interviews may be recorded and videotaped. So if that, if you are selected for a interview or oral presentation, you will be notified by Andrea Smith, and we'll schedule from there. So the selection process. The city intends to select applications that best meets the needs of the city and that provides the best overall value. This city reserves the right to check references on any projects performed by the applicant, whether those references are either provided by you or known already by the city. Funding will be distributed to applicants that meet or exceed the minimum points. And again, we'll go over those points shortly. Starting with the highest score. After allocating funding based on highest scores, if there are insufficient funds to allocate the next applicant, the city may. And I'll go over the steps that happen in that situation. One is request the next applicant lower its funding request, or we skip that applicant and award to the next applicant whose funding request does not exceed the available funding. And then we choose, or we also may choose not to award the remaining funding under the SNOFA. The city may continue those two steps, 1 and 2 above, with each next applicant in order of score from highest to lowest until all funds are awarded or the city determines it will not award any remaining funds under this NOFA. So the city has a set amount of money and they go through the list based on the score and scoring that we'll talk about later. And if we can just have everyone. All right, so next we're going to talk about the evaluation criteria. I'm going to go over the minimum threshold requirements. So the minimum threshold requirements are requirements that you must meet in order to even be considered. So as the evaluation coordinator, I will look through the applications, and if you do not meet these minimum requirements, your application will be disqualified. So these are really important, and I encourage you to go over each one on your own and make sure you have the appropriate documentation for each item. Number 1 is no officer, director, or owner has been banned or debarred from doing business with HUD or the city, or the state for that matter. Applicant is serving persons living with or affected by HIV and under 80% AMI or area medium income. There's a special note there that for TBRA, parent leasing, and community residents, that is 50% AMI. Consistent with HOPWA needs identified in the consolidated plan. So we've also included a link here to the consolidated plan so that you can review that at your own time. And we have highlighted the pages that are applicable, which is 63, 67, and 63 and 67. The certificate of account status from Texas Comptroller. And also there's a link there. The current 501c3 tax exempt status from the Internal Revenue Service. And again, we provided a link. You must operate business within the City of Houston EMSA, which Melody explained previously what areas fall under that EMSA. Must be able to provide evidence of site control for the duration of their agreement. Funding requests must be at least $100,000. And the applicants must document 3-month cash flow reserve, i.e. line of credit, bank statements, or something similar. And the board of directors must certify that 3-month cash flow reserve. So those are the threshold requirements, and I think Jared's going to go over the actual scoring criteria.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. So we'll go over the scoring criteria. So it's probably where everybody wants to perk up because, points. Scoring criteria. So the max for this NOFA will be 100 points are available. So that will be the maximum score should you, get all points. So the first one, management, it's up to 5 points. Basically, this is where you're going to tell us about your organization, a narrative, keep it not too long, to the point, as well as an organization chart. So it'll illustrate, how the administrative framework and the staff and positions and, what the proposed project, how it will fit into your overall organizational structure. So a lot of times we'll like to see kind of a master or a primary organizational chart, and then one that shows where this particular activity or project fits into the larger organizational structure. And then it identifies the staff and positions that may have either fully dedicated to the project or that may have shared responsibilities. If that's the case, let us know if that's a 0.5 or 100%, put a percentage or something. And then if you have any vacancies, you can put the if it's staff to be hired, you can put that it's just a vacant position to be filled. So again, that's up to 5 points for providing that. Target services. So this is where you're going to describe the program and the services, and that's up to 5 points, and it's broken up into 2 sections. So there'll be up to 2 points if the applicant is serving rural or underserved counties. So again, this being HOPWA, it's the 9-county MSA. So there are rural areas and underserved areas, and so we'll be looking for projects that can benefit them. And then the other 3 points is if the applicant is requesting funds for TBRA, tenant-based rental assistance, and or STRIMU, short-term rental mortgage and utility assistance activities. So if you are asking for funds for those, you can get up to an additional 3 points. Activity need and justification. So here's a big one, it's 15 points. So you're going to tell us what is the problem and the need for why this project you're proposing it and what need and problem you're going to address by us funding it and supporting it. So it's 15 points total. So the activity will be evaluated in terms of the documentation and justification of the need. That portion is up to 10 points. So please tell us why this is important and stay on point. Some agencies, I'll tell you in the past, they kind of drift off and tell us about their whole history. This is where you really need to tell us what problem you're addressing. And then that second half, the 5 points for the consolidated plan priority. So back up in the threshold section, there was a link to the consolidated plan. So we have goals and priorities related to HOPWA. So as long as your activity is addressing one of those high priority items identified in the consolidated plan, you can get up to 5 points. Cost reasonableness and effectiveness. So this section is worth up to 10 points. So I'll just go ahead and read through because it's broken down into different elements. So the activity will be evaluated in terms of 1, its impact on the identified need, which you're telling us above. And 2, its implementation costs and funding request relative to its financial and human resources. So this is where we're going to evaluate like the overall, do your costs seem in line? Do they seem reasonable based on, our knowledge and factors you're telling us in that need or unique items that you may be facing or trying to address? The evaluation will include the cost incurred per person, per unit, and the justification for a particular level of funding included in the NOFA. Administration costs or indirect costs are capped at 7% of the funding request. So again, we're going to look at, where you explain, how reasonable and effective what you're proposing is and the cost associated with that. Data-driven evaluation, this section is worth up to 15 points. So this is where we're looking for your results and how you're evaluating your effectiveness of the program that you're proposing. So the points will be awarded to applications providing they provide documented data, which demonstrates the need for the program. So again, you've had your narrative above where you tell us about the need and the problem. Here's the data that helps support it and the likelihood of success for the proposed intervention or services of the program. The application should provide evidence that the proposed approach is likely to be effective and or provide a significant opportunity to advance the field. So what that's saying is, what evidence are you telling us in this application? And remember, you have to tell us. We can't go, the evaluation committee doesn't really know, it's going to be a diverse membership. And so they're not going to know what your agency does. So you're going to have to be really on point and tell us, how is it going to be effective, and then how is it going to be an opportunity to advance the field of serving those that are eligible for HOPWA services. The application should provide a commitment to defining clear goals and tracking results, learning and adapting and sharing results and learning with others. So this is one of those where, tell us how you're working with other agencies, how you're going to evaluate your program, what data you're going to track, what goal. Is it going to be like 100% of clients are going to receive a certain service, or 80% will have an improvement in whatever you tell us? This is where we need you to define that for us. The points will be awarded to applicants based on documentation provided that demonstrates that the program is the most effective program to achieve the impact described, and demonstrates that funding the program is the best leverage for the city and taxpayers. Experience and past performance. So here you'll have, you can have an introduction, tell us about the overall organizational capacity and your capability. And this section's up to 10 points. The points will be awarded based on the experience of your agency, including previous work, if you have it with the city, length of time that the overall organization has been established or in business and providing these particular services or serving this particular population that you're targeting, and the experience in undertaking projects of similar complexity. So that's where we're going to look at. If you're coming at us and the biggest project you've done in the past is maybe you've done $50,000 to $100,000 project with 1 or 2 staff, and you come and apply for $1 million. If you could really explain that really well and have a really good plan, you know, that's possible, that we would consider that. But if you don't have experience, or you cannot provide all the accompanying justification for $1 million, then this is where you need to look at what experience you have and keep it reasonable and manage your expectations. So in addition, the applicants will be awarded points based on their past performance with local, state, and federal funding programs. The past performance will refer to the overall attainment of objectives in a timely manner and expenditure of funds at a reasonable rate in compliance with contract. Compliance with the contract will include, but not be limited to, timely submission of reports, reimbursement requests, and adherence of the scope of services. So that's where, if you've had previous funding, whether the city or HUD, other local, federal, or state funds, we're going to be looking at what your performance was. It's really important that you expend these funds in a timely manner. They do have a limited lifespan. HOPWA has, with the funding, every year that we get an allocation, that funding basically can be spent for up to 3 years. And if not expended, then it will be returned to Treasury. So we have to have timely expenditures, timely execution of your performance measures. You have to expend at a reasonable rate per the, what the expectations are of the agreement, as well as the reporting. We have to report back to HUD the information and who's being served and what are the benefits. For those that have not received city funding through housing and community development in the past, the allocation of up to the maximum of 2 points will be awarded, dependent upon thorough documentation of similar past performances submitted with the application. So we're trying not to penalize if you're a new agency. We want new agencies. We want to expand the scope and the number of agencies that are participating in our program, and maybe target some of those areas that currently aren't being served. So that's basically why we're going to, with the right documentation, award up to 2 points. All right, leveraging. It's pretty simple here, up to 15 points. So you're basically rewarded for, if you can do a $1-to-1 dollar match, you can get up to 15 points, 100%, 1-to-1 or more. Leveraging points will be based on, as you can see in the scale there, the lower the leverage, whatever category you fall into, it will fewer points for less leverage. Budget effectiveness. So this is where you provide a detailed budget, program objectives and plans, up to 10 points. So this is the Excel worksheet. The budget evaluation will consist of the extent to which the program budget supports the scope of services. So the two should be linked. If you're providing a scope of services that says you're going to have X number of case managers or whatever in services, the budget should reflect that. There should be consistency between the two. The agency's work plan, program objectives and plans, that demonstrates the capacity to perform proposed activities and the business plan. So this just tells us how you're going to get it done. What, objectives, what plans are you putting out? How is your program going to be designed related to the budget? Realistic cost estimates and reasonableness. So again, this goes back to the other section. This is where we're looking at the budget itself and we're looking at the cost that you're stating. Are the salaries reasonable? Keep in mind that the city of Houston, we're looking at all staff funded with grant funds should make a minimum of $15 an hour. I believe we're still going, that hasn't changed. So $15 an hour minimum for staff funded with grant funds. Overall completeness and accuracy. So again, make sure your numbers add up, double check. If you find an issue with a formula or if there's something wrong with the budget, feel free to notify us if there's an error overall, check your numbers, double check it, have somebody that's not worked on this take a look at it and review it for you. That's always good to get somebody that has no idea and give you feedback and make sure that it makes sense to them and that they can understand. And then plans for continuation of services following discontinuation of HOPWA funding. So we do want to see how your agency can support what you're proposing should the HOPWA funding be discontinued. Is that part of your leverage funds? Would you scale back? Would you have other sources in the meantime that you would go and secure? Accessible location. So this is up to 5 points. The applicant describes the accessibility of the proposed location and how the applicant addresses the transportation needs of clients served. So basically, how can you get your clients to your service if it is located, depending on where it's located, particularly for those in a rural or less urbanized area that may not have as many transportation options. So here, some of the criteria: applicant's physical location is within half a mile of the light rail, high frequency bus routes, or transportation service. Again, up to 5 points. And then applicants, so you can get up to 5 points if you have that criteria. The physical location is half a mile of public transportation, but maybe it's a non-high frequency bus route or something that's an on-demand service. And half mile from the nearest, that's up to 3 points. And then if you're more than half mile from nearest public transit, then you would receive 0 points based on the location of the service or the facility. Agency collaboration, up to 5 points. The applicant collaborates with other agencies that support or enhance care of the target population, must provide submitted documents on the collaborating agency's letterhead. So this is where you would tell us, how are you working with other agencies? How are you leveraging your network and other services that are being provided that are out there in this for those that are in need? You would need an MOU or something on the agency's letterhead, a letter of support that says, you've talked to them with a signature to state that, you are working together or you're coordinating with them if funded, and they would be, part of your project or assist you. And then the last one is probably the easiest part, up to 5 points, or well, basically 0 or 5. So in the PDF section, when you submit that, please set it up to where it's tabbed. And so that's on the left-hand side of the document. I'm not sure if I can show it here. Okay. Do you want to show them real quick what that looks like?
And go into there when in submission.
Okay. Okay. So we'll get to that. So, all right, I've droned on long enough. I'll turn it over to Andrea.
Thanks, Jared. Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrea. I'll go over the part 4 of the NOFA, which is the application process and requirements. So this is currently our pre-application conference we're conducting. And so we won't go into too much detail. That's what's occurring here. We have additional information and any NOFA changes. So any requests for additional information and questions should be addressed in email to andrea.smith@houstontx.gov no later than 5 p.m. on September 29th, 2022. The City of Houston shall provide written responses to all of these questions received in writing before the submittal deadline. Any questions from all applicants will be answered and sent to all applicants, and will also be listed on our procurement website. Any applicants shall be notified in writing of any changes in the NOFA, and that's also done on the SPD website, which we'll show you in just a moment here. Any letters of clarification and interpretation to this solicitation shall be in writing. Any letter of clarifications or interpretation that is not in writing shall not legally bind the city. Only information supplied by the city in writing or in this NOFA should be used in preparing applications. The city does not assume any responsibility for the receipt of any letters of clarification sent to applicants. So here we're going to go over the required application content. What I'll do is I'll toggle between this and the actual website here in just a second. But there's 22 documents that are required for your application. Part 3 here does have multiple sections, subsections, and I'll go over that in just a moment. All of these forms, if they are in a form, can be found at this website here. When you open this website or this document, this NOFA document, it's a hyperlink that'll go there. So we're going to just put a pin on the required content, and I'll go back to that in just a sec. So examining the documents and the requirements, each applicant shall carefully examine all NOFA documents and familiarize themselves with all requirements prior to submitting an application to ensure that the applicant meets the intent of this NOFA. So before applying, we ask that each applicant shall be responsible for making all investigations and examinations that are necessary to ascertain conditions and affecting the requirements of this NOFA. Failure to make such investigations and examinations shall not relieve the applicant from obligation to comply in every detail with all provisions and requirements of this NOFA. So here are some post-application discussions with applicants, as Lindsay previously discussed. It's the city's intent to commence final negotiation with the applicants, the most advantageous to the city. The city does reserve the right to conduct post-application discussions with any of the applicants. So here is instructions for applications. So all application submissions will only be received online. I understand this is a different process than has traditionally occurred. However, once again, just to reiterate that, all applications will be received online only through this hyperlink at this portal. Paper applications received in person or by email will not be accepted, folks. So I'll show you where this link is when we open it in just a second. And let me just review the remaining items here, because this portal will tie to these application content requirements. So for instructions, the city shall bear no responsibility for submitting applications on behalf of any applicants. Applicants may submit their application through this hyperlink provided at any time prior to the stated deadline. In terms of the time for applications, they shall be submitted no later than the date and time indicated for the submission in the first page of this NOFA. Late applications will not be considered. We are requesting that the format of your applications are in Arial 12 font, double spaced, and your materials should be submitted as directed in the hyperlink provided. Page limitations must be adhered to as outlined. Application materials will not be returned to applicants. In terms of what we define as a complete application, applicants are advised to carefully review all the requirements and submit all documents and information as indicated in the NOFA. Incomplete applications may lead to an application being deemed non-responsive. Non-responsive applications will not be considered. Timely receipt of application. So the applicant will remain responsible for ensuring that its application is received at the time, date, and the hyperlink specified. The city assumes no responsibility for any application not received, regardless of whether the delay is caused by some other act or circumstance. If you are experiencing technical issues with our portal, please don't hesitate to email me at andrea.smith@houstontx.gov. So what I'll do here is I will resume this section here with the required application content and specifically where the forms are located in the portal. So for those who are not familiar with our website, if you go to houstontx.gov/housing, it'll take you to our housing website. You scroll down to funding/contract opportunities. You can also just type that in there, housing/funding. You'll need to select the NOFA right here on the top right. And you'll see that this HOPWA NOFA is your featured NOFA right at the very beginning once you click NOFA. Okay, so we will have a recorded copy of this pre-application conference available here shortly after the call. Here you're able to view the NOFA. When you click this link, it'll take you to another website, which is the City of Houston Strategic Purchasing Department website. Here, you're able to click the actual solicitation, and that's the document we were just reviewing. So you're able to retrieve the NOFA there from that link. Also, there's a link from our website. So that's where you can retrieve the NOFA. You have, as we mentioned here, you have the list of these required content here at this website, and those documents are right here. So here, the very first document that's required is your NOFA application checklist. When you open this up, you will see, just a second here, you will see the checklist. I'm just going to split my screen here so we can toggle between the two pages. So you will have your NOFA application checklist. So the first one is this checklist itself. What we've also done for you, just for ease of reference, is we've numbered each part that's on the checklist. So you have the documents with the matching part number and the title here, and you have the document here. Okay, so you'll have your checklist, you have your title page here, and then you have your content and program narrative. So when you click into your program narrative, just a sec, I'll show you what that looks like here. Part 3 is your proposal content and program narrative. So there's multiple sections within part 3. Your introduction, there's language here that will guide you on what to include in your introduction. Please note that there are page limits within each section, so please adhere to those page limits. So you've got your introduction, your problem statement or demonstration of need. Jared went into this earlier, but there's a lot more detail here that you can reference. You've got description of program and services. You've got that here in section C. Section D is program objectives and plans. That consists of your administration, the delivery, your policy and collaboration. You've got organization capacity and capability, and there's your sections within that area. Demonstration of funding need is defined here. Your results and evaluations are here, and consistency with the consolidated plan is here. And we again provide the consolidated plan link and the pages specifically relating to this HOPWA NOFA. Okay, so that's part 3. We'll move on to part 4, which is your HOPWA budget application. Please note that you are able to submit this in a PDF format. However, if you do submit it in a PDF format, we are going to require that you also submit it in the Excel format. Okay, so that's your HOPWA budget application. Your part 5 is your accounting system certification, which is right here. So you'll notice that there are multiple pages for these documents. You'll go to page 2 and it'll continue to part 6 here, where it says security policy. That's aligned with your checklist here. And the remaining part 7, 8, 9, part 10 is not a form. You'll need to provide your SAM.gov unique entity ID and evidence of registration. And as you folks are accessing this link here, I have been informed by our IT folks that sometimes the part numbers are not in order. It's sometimes just a glitch that occurs. You'll just need to refresh your page and it'll eventually correct itself, but it should be in the order of part number as it corresponds to your checklist. So you've got your security policy, parts 7, 8, 9, and 10, and 11 here. And this conflict of interest questionnaire form, please note that that's only submit that if it's applicable. The form itself defines when it is an applicable document. So you've got part 12, which is your anti-collusion statement, part 13, which is your affidavit of ownership form, part 14 is the conflict of interest form, and part 15 is your list of board of directors, owners, and officers that must be completed. Beyond that, the rest are not forms. They are actual documents that must be submitted by the applicant. You've got your articles of incorporation or charter documents, your bylaws or rules, most recent 2 years financial audit or balance sheet income statements. You've got your organization chart and narrative, certificate of occupancy, licenses that are applicable, and your anti-discrimination policy. So please note that this is not the same as your EEO document. So next, what we'll do is when you go back to this site here, you're able to submit your documents here through this portal. When it loads, So this is the only way you will submit your application and supporting documents to us in response to this notice of funding availability. You'll be required to complete the fields with the red asterisk. So basic information, your project information, your name, the project name, the address, the city, state, zip code, and then the applicant or organization information. So the legal name of your entity, the type of organization is a drop-down menu, contact name. This is the primary contact for the NOFA. Should Lindsay or I need to contact someone regarding the document submitted, who should we contact? That title, their phone number, their email address, and the address that they can be reached at. Okay, so here I'll walk you through the submission of these documents. It's pretty simple. What you'll do is you'll click this blue attached HCD NOFA submission documents. When you click the link, it'll actually go to your a folder. So when you are on the website and you can download and complete those forms, you can save them and it'll go directly into that folder, or you have the ability to search from that folder within your computer. And when you select a document such as this, you open it and it'll actually show the document here. And it still will say pending until you submit the document here, this submit button. You can add additional documents and you'll see them here. So the additional 5 points that Jared was referring to earlier was making sure that each document is labeled and tabbed in this manner correctly. Okay, so that's how you will submit this. I think the one thing to note is this application portal does time out. Please log in and submit all at once. There's no ability to upload some documents, save it, and then retrieve what has been uploaded and resume where you left off. You'll need to submit all at once. So I'm sorry, we don't have the capability to design it differently at this time, but we're looking into that for the future. So when you're ready to submit, all documents have been prepared. You're welcome to do so. And then please hit the submit button here. Okay. And that covers the entire application, the notice of funding opportunity here, and the actual application process itself and how it's submitted. Okay. That covers all of part 4. The next section is part 5. There are special conditions, specifically the no contact period. Just as with other solicitations that the city has published, neither applicant or applicants nor any person acting on applicant's behalf shall attempt to influence the outcome of the award by the offer, presentation, or promise of gratuities, favors, or anything of value to any appointed or elected official or employee of the city, their families, or staff members. All inquiries regarding the application are to be directed to the designated city representative identified on the first page of the NOFA. With the exception of the applicant's formal response to the application and written request for clarification during the period officially designated for such purpose by the city representative, neither applicant nor persons acting on their behalf shall communicate with any appointed or elected official or employee of the city, their families, or staff through written or oral means in an attempt to persuade or influence the outcome of the award, or to obtain or deliver information intended to or which could reasonably result in an advantage to any applicant from the time of issuance of the application through the pre-award phase and up to the date and city secretary publicly posts notice of any city council agenda containing the applicable award. However, nothing in this paragraph shall prevent an applicant from making public statements to the city council convened for a regularly scheduled session after the official selection has been made and placed on the city council agenda for action, or to city council committee convened to discuss a recommendation regarding the application. So we do have, as part of our special conditions, there's an appeals process. We do have our policies attached here, as well as the state's policies. The city does has at its sole discretion reserve the right to cancel this NOFA or reject any of the applications received prior to contract award. So the remaining items here are all city, state, and federal requirements that we are bound to with the housing department. So you're welcome to review those. Please do so prior to submitting an application to ensure compliance with the applicable regulations.
All right, so at this time, if there's any questions, if you can, I think are we doing raising the hand or are we just doing in chat? How do we want to handle this? Yeah, if you can put your question in chat, I'm happy to discuss it. We did have one question that I had already responded to, and the question was, as part of the instructions, stated the format should be double space. The narrative we viewed was single space using double space between section. Is that acceptable? Yes, that is acceptable. You must still adhere to the page limits. And so we will definitely write that as a clarification when we answer all the questions. I don't see any more questions coming through. I'll wait a few seconds. I do see a hand. So Leslie, if you want, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, ma'am. On part 3, proposal content and program narrative, on part 4, Roman numeral 4 down there, it says page limit 3. However, if we add the MOUs, for our collaboration.
The MOUs are not, yeah, the page limits are for your narrative only.
Okay, so it can be longer than 3 pages if we're adding additional documents to that section. Is that?
Your narrative cannot be longer than 3 pages.
Understood. Okay. Also, regarding the part 22 anti-discrimination policy, is this for our employees or just specifically for our housing anti-discrimination policy?
This is for your organization, not for your employees. This is where your organization has a policy that they do not discriminate against anyone. So if your organization does not have that policy, then you probably need to get it written very quickly so you can submit it with this NOFA.
Okay, thank you kindly.
No problem. Is there any limits in terms of the number of MOUs? No, there is not a limit. But your participation should be, sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once. Your participation, your collaboration letter should be within a year, and there is no there is no limit to MOUs, but it should directly relate to your application. Do all requested programs to be funded go into a single application? Yes. If your agency is applying, then and they have multiple programs, perhaps they have TBRA, STRUMU, and a support service program for daycare, then all of that is one application, and your budget should align in that way. So we should be able to clearly see your project that way. Can agencies submit as a coalition? So Joe, if you can unmute yourself and clarify your question, that would be helpful.
Sure. I guess just have a lead in several smaller organizations with a bigger organization. And each doing maybe a different service. For example, one's doing tenant-based rental assistance, one's doing behavioral health. I'm not talking about me or my agency. I'm just asking the question.
Right. For HOPWA, that does not lend itself very well.
Okay.
So I think that if there is a program that's trying to leverage other programs, I think that each agency that is participating, if there is one dealing with some mental health, and remember, HOPWA doesn't pay for direct medical, but if,
right,
it's leverage to care, or I'm saying the wrong thing, case management, that type of stuff around mental health, they should apply under support services. If there's an agency wanting to do TBRA or STRUMU, they should apply as well. So HOPWA does not lend itself for a lead agency type of program.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
Regarding application submission, we are submitting a single PDF document with content tab bookmarked in it, ? Or do we upload the document separately in the portal? So great question. As we were talking through this, we are going to put a letter of clarification out. You should follow the directions in which Andrea laid out. So you will be submitting and uploading those documents separately within the portal. And we will we will clarify that within our question. Can you scroll down to the page with dates on the items are due? Sure. It is also listed on the first page of the NOFA. And every agency should have access to it. If you have access to this program, or if you have access to this link to get here, you should have access to it. So we can share that in a second. I will share that in a second. Let me just, okay, we'll get that shortly. Part 21 licenses. What type of licenses? These are licenses, like if you're asking to pay a higher salary for an MSW or a PhD, or you have an MD on staff for whatever reason, we want to see those licenses. We want to see what it is that that you're requiring, so that we can ensure that those that we are funding have the proper documentation.
And that would also be if you have a particular type of facility, like you're doing supportive services, if it's a childcare facility or something else that requires a certification to operate, you should include that to show that you are certified and in good standing.
Right. Any more questions? Any hands? I did want to just clarify something. When we talk about HOPWA in general, the federal regulations dictate that an eligible beneficiary who receives HOPWA dollars must be 80% below area median income and have a diagnosis. That diagnosis must be signed off by some type of clinician. Now, under TBRA, TBRA operations, which is for community residents, and master leasing, that threshold is 50% under area median income. And so we know that lack of income is a sign of vulnerability. So Houston has put on a stricter requirement when it comes to housing individuals with a more of a permanent or longer term subsidy. I think that's it. I don't see any more questions. I don't see, was gonna snip it. I don't see a snippet in here. I'm gonna snip the solicitation schedule and put that in the chat. And so I believe this is what you guys were asking for. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. This is going to be posted on the website. So if you have additional staff that you feel would be interested in hearing us speak again, you can always send them this link. And again, we have questions open and we are available to answer questions until September 29th, 2022 at 5 p.m. And please send them to andrea.smith@houstontx.gov. I look forward to seeing your applications, and I look forward to seeing you in person once again. That's it.
Thank you, everyone.